Okay, it looks like the attendees have topped off here, so let's go ahead and get started. This is webinar number 6 of our LINBIT OpenNebula Tech Days. And today's topic is going to be the developers Q&A. This is where you can ask the developers all types of hard questions that you might not otherwise be able to get the answers to easily. So today on the panelist side, we've got, we'll just go down the list here. We've got Tino, and he is the lead cloud engineer at OpenNebula. Then we have Gabor and Renee, and they are both Linster developers here at LINBIT. And they're responsible for not only Linster, but also the plugins associated with that. For example, the one that plugs into OpenNebula. And we've got a list of questions, but please feel free to ask questions as we're presenting here, and we'll get them answered as well. The first question that we have is what kind of advantages does LINBIT SDS provide when it comes to day-to-day operations, such as upgrading, migrating, and managing SDS services?
Renee, that's maybe a question for you.
Okay. Well, it's easy to upgrade, that's for sure, because we used a lot of thinking about how to easily upgrade our services without having to manage a lot of database update script and such stuff. So usually you just install the new packages, and maybe before, if you have an external SQL server, make a backup of it and just upgrade the packages and restart the services, and you're good to go with the new version. If you have encountered any problems, you can just roll back your old database version and install the old package version, and you should be able to run everything again from the point before, and just provide us with info what did not work in the upgrade process, and we'll just get on bug fixing then. What else? Yeah, it's easy to create resources on nodes you need it. So it's basically just one command, and you get the volume on this node, on that node, and you can switch from diskless to disk full. So I guess that's what it makes it easy. And you have it replicated with Drbd and other technologies, or if you want to use NVMe, and that's all in one package, and you don't need some external plugins or technologies. It's all in Linster.
Yeah, I think one of the other advantages that LINBIT SDS provides as well is that the controller and the satellite nodes are separate, they're decoupled. So if your controller node does have an issue and you need to address that, the storage that's already there will be provided and not be interrupted, correct?
Yeah, correct. That's also, so even if the satellite dies, the storage which is already provided will continue running, and it's just not possible to issue new volumes or change disk full to diskless stuff and so on. So as long as you don't have problems with your backing storage, everything should continue to run, even if you remove the satellite or restart it.
Okay. Do you support S3 backups in Linster?
Well, the short answer to that is not yet, but this is one of the features that is currently in development. We did make some good progress, but it will still take some time, a couple of weeks we're talking about here. So it will definitely come. It's on our top of our to-do list. And yeah, currently we are developing against the Min.io backend, but we will also make sure to make it work with the Amazon S3 API. Yeah, okay. We're working on
it. Can we use dual primary? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, I just wanted to add that for the time being, people can use the backup capabilities of the 6.0 version of OpenNebula and can build a private marketplace which has a backend of either a HTTP server or S3. So you can program periodic backups of your VMs, even if they are running on using the Linster driver for OpenNebula, and OpenNebula will take them to S3 periodically. It's not as good as having a backup at the storage level, that's for sure, but it's something in the meantime.
Okay, so if you're using OpenNebula and Linster, then you can essentially have that backup snapshot shipping just in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's very good. Okay, what new features are you developing these days for Drbd, Linster, and OpenNebula? So I guess this is more of a roadmap question. Where are we headed, guys?
Who wants to start?
Flip a coin.
So I can start if you want. I mean, for us, under our point of view, we are now in this, edge kind of adventure, and we have plans for implementing different edge cloud architecture for our OpenNebula clusters that are going to run remotely. And one very good candidate it's Linster, because we are lacking some of the Linster capabilities, especially duplication. So yeah, that could be in our perspective. That's something we are going to try and push for, having this integration of the edge clusters with Linster.
All right, then, yeah. As Gabo and I am not really involved into Drbd, I just can say what we know. It's on the roadmap from their side. So yeah, right now, next patch release is planned to be maybe in the next few weeks. I don't know exactly when, with few bug fixes. And so then there is this 9.10 branch, or released version already, which has some patches for reduced locking. So it should have better performance, and this will be our next stage where the current stable will move then. And there's also still the Drbd 10, which has some first, let's say, research features of how it's called, not striped. Gabo, help me.
Basically,
Yeah.
RAID 5.
Yeah, basically RAID 5. So it will then write and read from more than one node and distribute the read and write operations. So
Okay,
this
so
is
similar to erasure coding then?
erasure coding. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
There we go.
Yeah. And yeah, on Linster side, as Gabo noted, there's free backup shipping. And yeah, we have internal long list of issues and features we want to tackle, and yeah, but no big issues or big features right now what I could think of. Maybe Gabo.
There is actually one which should be released relatively soon, possibly next week. We are not completely sure now, which is actually shared storage pools, which means that if you have if multiple nodes have physical access to the very same physical storage disk, for example, Linster will now be able to make sure that only one resource will actively use that storage in order to prevent concurrent modifications which might corrupt your data and stuff. So yeah, I mean, shared storage pools should speak for itself, more or less. That is basically finished. We will release that soon. So that's more or less one of the greater features from the past few months. But apart from that, I don't really know if there's something that interesting. But yeah, as I said, there will be a release relatively soon, so feel free to check the changelog, I guess.
Okay. So the next question is, are there any, is there a Linster GUI under development or planned? So
As far as-
graphical, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
As far as I know, there is the, what's it called? I keep forgetting the name, but there is definitely a Linster GUI planned, not from our side, but we are cooperating with the company developing it. So they are, well, yeah, it's basically just a simple overview about Linster nodes and resources and storage pools. But unfortunately, I don't know from top of my head where their status is right now.
So when I
So-
talked to Phil, I think he said we expect a release candidate in June or July. I've seen the dashboard, and it's very intuitive. It was not difficult to navigate and get around and understand what was happening. And I know this is something that it's been out there and requested many times. But I think we're actually finally going to see something here that's usable and has a lot of accessible information available at your fingertips there. So we've got another question. The MinIO is brought up. How does that fit into the big picture? So I guess how does OpenNebula or Linster integrate into MinIO?
I think Gabo meant before with MinIO, we just misuse MinIO to develop the S3 storage backend, because MinIO has some API which is similar or the same as the S3 API for storing, if I'm correct.
Yes, it's mostly similar. There are a few features that only apparently the Amazon S3 API supports or has implemented, but for our testing purposes, we are using internal MinIO. But that's basically only just for development, and we definitely will make sure that it's not just compatible with MinIO, but also with Amazon and basically the S3 interface itself.
Okay. So it's mentioned that the official Docker Linster volume plugin is a bit dated. Is it still safe to use? So I'm not sure who manages the Linster Docker. I think that's
It's
Rick.
Roland. So
Roland, yeah.
I'm not sure if I can answer this question with correct answer. I know there was someone who took that over. I'm not sure if it's the link from the GitHub who is posted here, but I think we basically put that to that guy because it was more advanced than our stuff at the time. But I'm not sure. I don't know if it's exactly that version or another one.
Okay.
So maybe ask somewhere in that GitHub repo and Roland. I will point him to that, or he will see it anyway. So
Okay. Yeah, that would be good. And then maybe we can shoot out the answer via an email or something like that. Because I don't know if Roland's online right now. Okay. Is auto primary secondary a functionality of Drbd or Linster? So the ability to auto promote.
All right, so that is definitely a Drbd feature, has nothing to do with Linster. It's basically really that simple that whenever you try to open the Drbd device itself, if it's possible, Drbd will promote itself, and as soon as you close the device again, it demotes itself. So that's completely a Drbd feature, no need for Linster to use that feature.
Okay. And I think that auto promote was originally released in Drbd. I think the functionality was an 8.4, but I don't think it was actually like, I don't want to say default, but out of the box in Drbd 9, I believe.
yeah, from my knowing is that it's started with Drbd 9. I'm not even sure if it's in 8.4, but
Yeah, I think the code was there, if I remember right, because I remember Phil demonstrating it, but I don't think it wasn't used in the same way. It was, it might have, I wouldn't even know if it would be usable in 8.4, but I think the code was there.
yeah, maybe.
So benefits of you. Oh, go ahead.
No, as I said, we are not the Drbd specialists. We are more basically the users of that.
Benefits of using Drbd in diskless mode versus iSCSI or NFS.
If I understand this correction correctly, you can, in iSCSI or NFS, you have to connect as an initiator to one specific target, right? With Drbd, you can have one or even multiple diskless connecting to other diskful Drbd peers, which means that although only one of the diskless can be actively used concurrently, which means only one of them can be primary at the same time, you still have this redundancy of the diskful peers. So even if one diskful fails or crashes or goes offline for any reason, the diskless, which is still primary, simply sends the request, the read request or write request, to simply a different diskful peer. And everything can go on without the diskless even noticing that, well, one of the peers crashed. I mean, it does notice, but the application does not notice. That's the point.
Okay.
But as Vinny also mentioned a few times, we are not really that Drbd experts. So if this is really something that needs to be discussed in more details, just send us, just reach out to us and we will make sure to answer this a bit more carefully.
Yeah, I think we've got some blog posts on linbit.com. I believe Yusuf went into testing Drbd with iSCSI and compared it to diskless mode, and then he posted the performance metrics of that, and then also compared Drbd 8.4 to 9, I believe.
And apart from that, we also have, of course, the Slack community, which everyone is free and invited to join, where every Drbd or Linster related question can also be asked.
Yeah,
just as a side note.
Good point. So OpenNebula on the edge is currently available for x86, x84. Is it possible to compile KVM LXC for the ARM64, ARM HF platforms? Tino, do you have any input on that?
Yeah. So yeah, obviously we fully support X 64 bits platforms, but for ARM we don't have official support. It's possible to compile, at least I know, LXC for ARM, but I mean, it will require a bit of tinkering to make it work all together. So we don't package that solution. We are working towards that because it's very useful in the edge to have support for such light devices. But at the moment, you need to make it work via plumbing.
Okay. And we've got another OpenNebula question here. What are the benefits of the new edge model compared to the old cloud bursting drivers? Hasn't Oracle just developed a new driver for OpenNebula 5.12?
Okay, yeah. So the benefits of the new edge model compared to the old hybrid model, where we, or rather OpenNebula, basically use the API of public cloud providers to request VMs based on images that are already on the public cloud. So the issue there was interoperability between the workloads in your local data center and across different public cloud providers. With the new edge model, we or rather OpenNebula manages bare metal servers and builds OpenNebula cluster that can run the same workloads as you have on-prem. So that would be, in my mind, the main benefit of this model. And it is true that Oracle just released an adapter for OpenNebula to use their public cloud offering. We are in talks with them to, 5.12 is an LTS version, so it makes sense for them to maintain a driver there, but we are in talks with them to also develop an adapter for the new Edge model for OpenNebula.
Okay. Let's see. Are there plans to support LINBIT SDS for OpenNebula Edge clusters as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this is in line of what I was saying before. So at the moment we have this Edge cluster architecture that is based on a modified version of the SSH data store in OpenNebula, which gives you great performance because it's based on running basically the VM using the local hard disks of the servers. But it suffers from fault tolerance and disaster recovery procedures because all the information is on a single host. If it goes down, you end up with a snapshot, previous snapshot, which for some workloads is just not enough. So yeah, it would be grand to count with such a good solution as Linster for these edge clusters. So it's definitely something that is in our roadmap.
Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. I think this question was actually asked in the last webinar we had, but says, is it possible that data may become corrupt or you may experience data loss because of RAM exhaustion used by the replication layer in Drbd/Linster?
Well, that's a tough question for us because
It's definitely
Linster,
for Drbd.
yeah,
Should have
point
brought
is
Phil
Linster.
on this.
The point is Linster itself only, let's say, configures or sets up Drbd to do the replication. So even if Linster, in the worst possible situation, encounters an out-of-memory error, which it cannot recover or should not be able to recover per definition, even then, yeah, Linster crashes, as Renee mentioned at the beginning of this session. Even if the satellite dies, the already configured and up and running Drbd resources keep continuing, as long as they don't suffer also the RAM exhaustion, of course. So from Linster's perspective, either Linster has finished setting up Drbd or not, there's nothing that could go wrong, but how Drbd behaves is beyond my knowledge, unfortunately.
I will suspect, that you don't end up with corrupted data, and it depends on what protocol you have set for the replication. I guess if you have protocol C, which is the default, then no, because your IO will be just blocked if there is an exhaustion in writing data to the disk or to the RAM. And yeah, you will probably lose if the server crashes whatever was in your RAM at that point, but not what was on the disk. So you should at least end up in a consistent state for the Drbd device.
Okay. Well, that exhausts the existing questions or the questions that we had ahead of the time here. So I don't know if I'll go ahead and have the floor open if there's any other questions to come in through the attendees.
I think did we not skip one? Or
Um,
can we use dual primary in LINBIT SDS, or was that somewhere answered?
I thought maybe I did skip that one. So dual primary with LINBIT SDS? Is that possible, and is it planned?
It is possible. It's what we use, for example, for the OpenNebula plugin for live migration, because that's one of the rare situations where you should use dual primary. There's another one if you have a cluster file system where another instance or application above does the logging for you. But yeah, in the end, for LINBIT or for Linster, it's just a property setting for the Drbd resource. Then you can dual primary your resources if you think that's what you want.
Okay. Let's see. So I think that this was sort of answered, but I'll bring it up again. So Drbd does full one-to-one mirroring. That's a true statement. Is there any plans to do distributed writes? So striping, basically the erasure coding. Is there a time frame on that?
Not for a stable version, I think. I mean, you can already check out this Drbd 10 that's publicly available on GitHub. It's just not production ready, I think. But with the results from that, we set the world record, I think 2 years ago or last year on performance based on that development branch. But it's just not stable enough yet to put it into production cluster. And then I don't know how the roadmap or the time plan is to bring that in a stable manner.
Okay. Did have another question come in. Can you tell us more about Drbd reactor, what it does and why I need it?
It is basically Drbd has this events 2 stream, which is, as it says, events what Drbd currently sees or encountered. So, for example, if you down a resource on a peer node, the event stream will say, "Hey, we lost the connection to another peer." Or if it reconnects, you get all that information. Also, Linster uses this event stream for putting out nice state information in the resource list. And Drbd reactor, how it's now called, is just a userland tool which listens on that stream, parses it, and allows you to react on it. So the first intention was to give it a new way to implement Drbd handlers, because I think we have some requests that the old Drbd handlers were not sufficient in some situations, and with the Drbd reactor now this can handle all of that situations. And another benefit of it is now the newest stuff, Prometheus metrics. And we also added some stuff to the utils. So right now, I think with the latest release, you already are able to see write statistics and read statistics with nice graphs. So this wasn't possible before because Drbd did not report read and write statistics often enough to make nice graphs out of it. And yeah, what's also possible with the Drbd reactor, and which is on our roadmap, is to make a simple version of an HA controller out of it. So for simple setups, or it is planned to have a guide, so how you can make the Linster controller HA without needing a pacemaker or some cluster control software. And there are probably other possibilities with Drbd reactor, which we currently not even think about yet.
So with the
Maybe.
Prometheus integration of Drbd, does that integrate into Linster as well then?
No, not exactly, because with this Drbd reactor, every node reports its own metrics. And in Linster, you just get the metrics from the controller, and it kind of bundles a few infos also from the satellites. But from my understanding from Prometheus, it is that usually all the nodes report their own metrics on their own, and you gather them in your Prometheus cluster, and then get the data out of it you want to have.
Okay, so are there any Linstore metrics that are exposed that you could gather data with in the Prometheus side of things?
Yes, simple ones like, you have from the Prometheus API, you get all kind of JVM statistics. So like how much RAM is used and how much threads currently running and such stuff, which can be interesting for performance reasons. And then you get other things like node states, resource states. So you can actually probably put an alert on if this resource goes down or loses a peer, write me an email, something like that.
Okay. So we have another question that came in here. Where can I deploy edge clusters at the moment using OpenNebula?
So yeah, from OpenNebula 6.0, which is the first version that has these cluster capabilities, you can deploy edge clusters in Amazon EC2 and also in Equinix packet. The plugin architecture is using Terraform at the moment, so we expect it to be easy to add new providers. So yeah, we're in talks with the people from Oracle, but also we want to bring Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure. Is going to be a bit more difficult, but we are also working on that. And our plan is to expand the catalog of public cloud providers that you can interact with using the edge capabilities of OpenNebula. So yeah, we'll be working on expanding that in the short term.
Okay. So when you're deploying these OpenNebula in general, I mean, do you guys have like a best practices or recommendations guide, or how do you guys normally handle that when you've got a customer that comes to you and asks, how do I do this?
Right, sure. So yeah, varying POCs and things like that. If you want to deploy that, if people contact us to deploy OpenNebula in production, we usually recommend them to use the cloud deployment service that we have, and we basically study the infrastructure and also the workload, and we figure out what OpenNebula design it's best for that particular use case. And well, it's a process where this design is agreed between the two parties, and then we deploy this OpenNebula architecture on their premises. We not necessarily have to manage that infrastructure. I mean, we can leave them the keys to the customer if they prefer to, and but they ensure that they have an optimal design for that particular use case, which is good. So no general recommendations really.
Okay, so when you're working with a customer, how does pricing fit into all of this? Do you guys do like a per node, or is it per cluster, or how do you work that into the equation?
Yeah, so basically we have like three types of support. So all our offering is around support subscriptions for OpenNebula production deployments. That gives you access to some benefits and also to our services like consulting, engineering services, so on and so forth. And these support subscriptions, so pricing depends basically on the level of support you want, being like basic support, or you need something like 9 to 5 or even 24/7 support. And the pricing is based on the number of nodes, regardless of CPU or RAM. So basically, yeah, number of KVM, LXC, Firecracker, or ESX nodes that you have.
Okay, that's good to know. So I know on the Linster side of things, it's there's a base price for the cluster, and then it's just based on however much storage you use.
Okay.
If in case anybody was wondering.
Good to know, yeah.
Okay, so still have a few minutes left here if we have any other questions to come in. So I can ask a question. So is there, as far as the development side of things go, on the OpenNebula and the Linster side, is there any type of features that you guys that are maybe like on the roadmap, but they're extremely far out, like maybe in dreamland? Like it'd be really cool if we could do this, but it's not planned today. Are there any things like that that you can share?
Yeah, this is strictly from Dreamland, right? But
Yeah.
I always thought it would be awesome to be able to, you know, control, manage, or change parameters from the underlying storage infrastructure directly from the Sandstone interface. That'd be awesome, but it's far away in the roadmap. Yeah. Yeah, but it would be really cool to be able to define some Linster parameters directly from the interface for the admins. Nice. Maybe integrate with your web interface, guys. That would be also cool. But yeah.
Yeah, it could be possible. I mean, it's just, I mean, I guess more work on the OpenNebula side than on the Linster side, because you would have to define some kind of templating thing where any plugin can insert stuff and has their own code running. Then these things. Yeah. bit of dreamland, but
yeah. Yeah, so OpenNebula is mostly based on this template thing. In each resource you can put any arbitrary object. So for instance, in the Linster data store, put any parameter there, right? And we can expose that to Sandstone, and then the Linster driver can just read that and react to that somehow.
Yep.
So yeah, no. I mean, it fits perfectly in the model. It's just a matter of putting resources there. So we need demand for that.
Okay. This is a unique question. I don't know how you want to answer it. It says, what does your dream customer look like? I don't know. I mean, from a development side, what do you think?
I guess our dream customer pays a lot and makes no rubber.
Glad you said it, not me.
No, but from a developer side is if there is a problem, and yeah, there are problems, bugs occur, and every software has bugs. We really like it if they are reproducible, and if not, at least we get good logs and information on the system and how it occurred and how to retry to reproduce it and such stuff. That always helps.
Yeah, indeed. I think a good customer needs to be able to provide good feedback. Sometimes it's difficult to reproduce a problem just you know, short message saying this doesn't work. It's like, okay, what else?
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of classify the different support requests from the first message. You can say this is going to take a lot of time or not. And most of the times it's probably just a configuration issue, but yeah, so good.
Yeah, and
good
quite often
communication.
it's difficult to find a customer that will provide that feedback. And I think that's one of the benefits that OpenNebula and LINBIT have is we're small enough companies that, you know, given feedback that is constructive and meaningful, we can actually make a change and do that. Whereas when you're working with some of these bigger companies, they might blow you off and say, yeah, that's cool. And then you never hear from them again.
I fully agree with that. Yeah, I mean, we provide support directly from the developers, and that's, I think, a really good value we offer. And
Yeah, it's
try
also
that
what I
with
wanted to say.
yeah, try that with VMware and try to reach someone that knows the code and knows what's happening.
Yeah. If you enter a ticket in LINBIT and OS, also in OpenNebula, the developers will read it and not some guy who uses the software. So
yeah, and that's there's been a lot of features that, you know, we've heard about at conferences, or we've had discussions with other people, and they said, you know, this is a pain point for us, but, you know, it only happens that we need to do this every once in a while. And then those things get turned into real features and then, of course, pushed out to the rest of the community. And I think getting people to realize that they can give us that feedback and they can give us that those suggestions is probably one of the hardest things to do, because people are so used to not getting any reaction when they provide feedback like that.
Yeah, could be the problem. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Think that's all the questions we have, and we're actually coming up on the end here, so it's perfect timing. So thank you all for attending. The webinars will be provided to everybody. I think we'll probably post them on YouTube, as well as send out email links to everyone with the recordings. Thank you all for participating, and we'll talk to you next time.
thank you.
Thank you guys for
Bye.
having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.